The Commanders with a wake-up call against the Bills. It was a TO, and the Commanders had some trip-ups on both sides of the ball. We go inside the locker room on what went wrong. Well, for starters, they had 5 turnovers. 4 of those were interceptions, 1 fumble, and Sam Howell was sacked 9 times.
As an offensive lineman, that's on our unit. We take that personally. We got to do a better job keeping him upright. We got to do a better job getting him that extra tick because, he's a baller. He's trying to make plays.
Howell on the year, 5 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, and he's been sacked 19 times.
He kept his poise, through a storm like that was real tough, and he didn't switch up on nobody. He didn't change his character.
Here with Lake Lewis, After Practice Podcast, Sports Journey, ABC Insider. Lake, you know what? Thank you for being on. And you know what? I'm representing my college, Fairmont State, because it's our homecoming this weekend. Okay. But let's jump right into this, Lake. Commanders lose 37-3 against the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk on the offensive side. Sam Howell, 4 interceptions. They had a fumble, and then he was sacked 9 times. What did you see there as far as the offense?
Not much. Honestly, Don, we sit next to each other in the press box, and we were talking the whole time about how it just seemed like Buffalo's defense knew what was coming, and I attributed that to, Eric Bieniemy obviously came from Kansas City, and Buffalo and Kansas City have met several times over the past several seasons, and I think Buffalo was very familiar with his play calling and with his playbook. The big difference is you don't have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce executing your offense now. So I think, you heard a couple of Buffalo players say after the game that, once they started throwing different looks at Sam, you could tell he was getting a little uncomfortable. And then on top of that, he was besieged, with a pass rush. So you add all those things together, and it wasn't too much that, we saw offensively. I will say this, that I thought Brian Robinson ran the ball effectively. A 7-yard average on the game. So I think Eric Bieniemy might have to come back, this week against Philadelphia and see if they can run the ball. It's going to be tough because the Eagles haven't given up 50 yards rushing on the season in any game. So Washington's got their work cut for them.
Yeah, and they're just shifting in the gear. But what disappointed you most about that game on the offensive side? Let's just say, look at this. Sam has 5 interceptions on the season, 3 touchdowns, and he's been sacked 19 times. If you don't have enough time to throw the ball and everything to set up your offense, I told you going into the season, the offensive line concerned me, and 19 sacks in 3 games is not a good look. Also, one of the Buffalo players said on the secondary, he said that he didn't even get his white jersey dirty. What does that say? And then, you look at the Buffalo's defensive front. Those guys were speed rushing, and they just kind of like bullied the Commanders' offensive line. But what disappointed you most? I'm still stuck on those 19 sacks.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the tackles. The tackle play has not been good in Washington. Let's just call it like it is. Charles Leno has struggled at times mightily. And then, of course, Andrew Wiley. They paid him a lot of money to come from Kansas City because he knows Eric Bieniemy's offense. But whether you know an offense,
I can't tell.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Whether you know an offense or not, it doesn't matter if your guy's running right by you. And the thing is, these tackles at times are with it. Donna, they're not touching the guy going past them, not even with a finger. And you can't have that, especially with a young quarterback, because you're going to get him shell-shocked after a while where he just doesn't feel comfortable at all. So, yeah, I think the tackle play has to be better. I don't know what the options are. I do think Cornelius Lucas needs to get a fair look, at one of those spots. And then maybe you shuffle some things around, and you did draft in the 3rd round, an offensive guard. So maybe it's time to put him in there, and then maybe you move Cosme back out to tackle or something. So they've got to be creative here because this offensive line is going to be the downfall of this football team if they don't fix it.
Were you surprised because you all offensively couldn't do some of the things you wanted to today?
A little bit, yeah. It was a little alarming, but they played well today. They played better than us.
It's heartbreaking when you get to the 2-yard line and you don't quite get it in. So that's on all 11 guys not executing. We knew going into the week they were going to make us earn it. They don't really give up a lot of big plays, so force your execution to be on point. So I got to first give them credit. Because they executed, they made us turn over the ball. So they put us in some tough spots. But at the same time, we got to be better staying ahead of the sticks against teams like that. You got to be better with your spacing and making sure you're just getting in second and third and manageable. So that their D-line is not able to pin their ears back and come at us. Each week presents its own challenge, and we're going to go into a hostile environment against a division opponent next week against Philly. And those games dang near count for 2. Because you're in your division and it's a win or a loss. But at the same time, if you don't address the things that we didn't do well today, then those same issues are going to show up next week. And they're a very good football team. They're a championship football team. So it just forces us to really dig deep and figure out what can we do to make sure we get better in 7 days to make sure those things don't happen.
I feel like we had success in the run game. Numerous amount of times we picked up positive yards in the run game. I would love to stick to it, as a running back, but sometimes, that's just not what's best for the offense. So with that being said, I just got to control what I control. My number card, I got to, make the most of it.
You said Brian Robinson ran the ball really effectively. And even in his post-game interview, he was saying that, it was working. And he said, but he has to go with what they're calling, and maybe they saw something that he didn't. But because of Sam and that offensive line, and let me just say this, Buffalo threw everything at him. He wasn't, I think that he was shell-shocked, like you said, because he wasn't used to what Buffalo was bringing down. But let's switch gears, and hopefully they'll run the ball a little bit more in Philadelphia. But let's shift the gears to the defense. They had 0 sacks. What disappointed you? And I'm surprised about the defensive play. But, Josh Allen, this is a quarterback that when I looked at that game, that middle was wide open. I mean, they got them in 3rd and longs and everything, but Buffalo got the first down on those 3rd and longs. And when Josh Allen took off, he had a clear seam up the middle, and then he had wide open receivers. You look at the linebacker play, Cody Barton, 13 tackles. And then you look at Jamin Davis, he had 11. But still, I think the linebacker play has to get better. What did you see on defense, and what disappointed you beyond the defensive front? Most of those guys only got 1 tackle.
Yeah, I think, starting in the first drive for Buffalo, you had, 2 or 3 third down conversions against you, and one of them was like 3rd and 20 something. I think it was 3rd and 23, and they hit Stephon Diggs, down the field, and it was, you could say it was a fluke play, when it first happened.
He still caught it, right?
He did, but then they repetitively and consistently started converting on all their third downs, and we've been talking about this for years now, and especially this offseason. Jack Del Rio, a lot of the defensive stars were like, we really want to start games fast and, 3 and outs, get teams off the field. They've yet to do that. Even the Cardinals in the first game just right down the field. And it's just like Washington's defense right now looks more like a bend but don't break defense. Like teams are moving the ball and then they kind of hold them once they get in the red zone. But you can't keep living like that. You've got to start creating turnovers. You've got to start getting your sacks. There were several times where Chase Young, who I thought played really well.
He did.
As far as applying pressure. And then Daron Payne. Daron Payne was the best defensive player on the field, period.
And he was hurt. He had an ankle injury, but he still got 3 tackles.
Yeah. So you think about those 2 guys, did well. Didn't hear a lot of John Allen, on Sunday. Didn't hear anything from Montez Sweat. So, this team is built around that defensive line. And if they're not getting sacks, if they're not, really forcing the other team's hand on the offensive line, they're going to be in long days ahead because, as you said, Donna, the linebacking core is just not good. There's no other way to get around it. It's a shame that they're trotting this kind of talent out behind that stout defensive front. And I think a pretty good young secondary, but a young secondary that, they have to be, in other words, Donna, the secondary, as young as they are, they're talented, but they're not going to be any good if the defensive front isn't creating havoc for them. So this
You're right.
every section of this defense, from the front four to the linebackers to the secondary, everyone plays off of each other. And if one isn't working, everything else is exposed. And unfortunately, that's Jack Del Rio's defense.
Everybody's gonna lose one day. I mean, this wasn't gonna be no Cinderella story where we go 17-0, maybe. But we got an L today, so now we finna see what kind of team we are, and not just a small L. We got a big L today, so we finna see how can we bounce back from this? Can we recover? Can we fix the issues that we made today, and not repeat them next week? That's what it is. People are gonna try and exploit the mistake we did this week, today, and then see if we fix them next week, and that's what we need to do.
Could you talk a little bit about what went on out there for you all defensively?
Not much, honestly. We need to go out there and make more plays. Like I said earlier, we shot ourselves in the foot way too many times to really go out there and give us a chance to win. We made some plays, but we made a lot of errors that usually we wouldn't make. So it was really hard to come back after that. Other teams are going to capitalize on that. So if we come out there and then we beat ourselves, it's going to be very hard to beat another team, NFL team.
Hey, Kendall, talk about what happened out there defensively for you all.
We just left some plays on the field, just didn't make our plays. NFL is always small little things, small details that if you don't do them, big plays happen. Offenses make plays, and so we just got to all work together as a group, do the little things right, and it'll show up on film.
You said that they didn't do anything differently. You all just pretty much shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, they did what they did, man, and, you tip your hat to them. They made their plays. And I think when we watch the film, we'll see little things that we didn't do that led to them making plays, and you correct it and get ready for next week.
You talked about a little bit about the slow starts on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. 3 games in, and this team is almost waits to the second half to wake up. What do you see as the problems of why they're starting so slow on both sides of the ball? Because guess what? They can't keep playing catch-up ball. They're not that type of team. They're not that good yet that they can play behind and try to turn things around in the second half.
Well, I think, this is a team that I'm actually writing something today, Donna, and it's what team is this? Is this a team that's ascending, or is it a team that maybe, we got ahead of a little bit? And I think they fall right in the middle. I do think that they're on the upward trajectory. I really do. But I also think that they've proven that they can't compete with the big boys on a consistent level. I know they beat Philadelphia last year, and that's something that I'm sure the Eagles are going to be quite aware of. And I don't know if I'm going to see it twice in 2 years, but the point is the Eagles are a better team than Buffalo, in my opinion. Better defense. And if you saw Washington struggle with Buffalo, my God, what's going to happen with Philadelphia on the road in a divisional game with a team that you've gotten their attention now. So that's the other thing. You go back to those first 2 games, Donna, and people were saying, oh, they had an easy win against the Cardinals. No, because the Cardinals just beat the Cowboys.
Exactly.
So that was a quality win. But the Broncos game now looks like maybe Washington started a trend on Denver's defense. And, Denver just gave up 70 points to the Dolphins. So
and 726 yards.
I mean, that's like no one's out on the field, man. I mean, you can't even have enough possessions to accumulate those type of yards.
Were they playing basketball or football? Because with that score, that was a basketball score.
70 points on a professional football team, an NFL team, is just unheard of, and that's not cool. So, but if you're Washington, you look at that game and you say, did we just throw up these points on a bad team? Or, they came back from 21-3, so you can't lose sight of that. So they did show resiliency in that game. But for me, the measuring stick for this team were Buffalo and Philadelphia. We both said it, you and I, that you're going to find a lot out about this team over the next 2 weeks. And, you're hoping for a split. They still have an opportunity to do that. but the way they lost to Buffalo, it did look like a talent level gap. It absolutely did look like a scheme gap. And it looked like, for the most part, they got out coached. And you've got to fix that. You can't have that. And the Eagles are a young team too, but they're hungry. They felt like they should have won the Super Bowl last year, and they're going after it this year. That defense is ferocious. So you can't run on them. You can't really pass on them. Washington's offense has had its trouble. So Eric Bieniemy and company, they've got their work cut out to be creative this week.
They better bring, as you say, their A++ and triple A+.
I tell you what,
play calling and all of those things. They better make sure that cake is in the oven and have all the major ingredients in it. But Lake, got to have you back again when I have the big guy in the chair to talk about and break down this Commanders team. Again, Lake Lewis for Sports Journey After Practice Podcast and ABC Insider. So Lake, we'll see you in Philadelphia.